everyone, and my name is Tarek, and in this series we're going to be developing a .NET Core a blog application using .NET Core, which with the C# and a MongoDB and Angular 7. So, well, if you see my other videos, I usually record videos in Turkish, but this time I'm gonna be doing it in English for this particular series, and we're gonna be looking at various technologies and how to use them and how to use them to develop a blog application, a very simple blog application. It will have a home page, and it will have a very simple admin page where the administrator can post posts basically and edit them and stuff like that, and a very basic database authentication to log in. And also we're gonna be having a detail page for each blog posts, and we're gonna be supporting Markdown and all that stuff. Again, it's going to be a simple blog application that I'm thinking to actually use as my primary blog application, and I will be hosting this app on AWS, probably using Docker. So we're going to be using Docker, by the way, for MongoDB. I don't want to install MongoDB to my computer, just a very simple MongoDB image we're going to be using, and to connect it we're gonna be, at least to maybe manage it, I usually prefer command line, but I'll also show you how to use Compass application that comes with the MongoDB as a separate installation, or you can install in MongoDB and that comes as a part of the MongoDB installation as well. So let's go ahead and start, and you'll see me time to time for more detailed explanation, but right now let's go and dive into our application and start off with the command line. All right, so again, I really like using command line tools, and this time I'm using conemu, which is like this. Anyway, so let's make a directory first, and I'm gonna be calling it ng blog, or let's say just a blog. I think that'll be fine. Let's go into that folder, and I'm gonna be using .NET 2.2 or 2.1, I believe 2.2, yeah, and .NET Core 2.2, and we're gonna be storing our code and literally everything in Git repo, and I'm gonna be pushing those to GitHub. And I haven't created a GitHub repo yet, which I'm gonna be doing pretty soon. And the good thing is that I'm gonna make it open source, so you can literally, use that for your own blog as well. Or if you want to send me pull requests or make it better, go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and start with creating our first, well, not the first, but our GitHub repo first on github.com. So I'll be going to, GitHub, if I can type it, of course. And let's create a new repo. I'm gonna be calling it blog, and that's gonna be an open source simple blog developed with Angular 7, .NET Core, and MongoDB. So it's gonna be public. I don't want it to, well, let me see if there's any .NET, maybe like this, or C#. I usually create my own. All right, so I usually create my own git ignore. I'm using a JetBrains writer for this project, and for most of my personal projects I usually use IntelliJ based IDs. So okay, let's go ahead and create that. And so what we're going to be doing is that here I'm gonna say git init. Actually, let's git clone here, and I will be saying GitHub, actual git darknay and blog, and you appear to have cloned an empty repo, which that's fine. So let's do like a, and so let's go into blog. Of course, now I do have, well, I should have make it a flat file or flat directory. So what I can do, of course, I can so in here in blog, if I go to blog folder, you'll see that I will have a git repo, git folder there. So I'm gonna copy that git folder to the parent folder, so that I can make the parent blog folder as my repo folder, and I don't have to have like two folders with the same name. So let's say git move, or move and folder to, oops. Oh yeah, so let me see what we did. Well, that's even worse. All right, let me do this. Oh, it's actually changed its name. That's okay. So what I'm gonna be doing right now. Oh, okay. All right, so I hope you see it right now. So I've cloned the git repo, and so I made a mistake. So I accidentally changed the name of the git repo folder. So I'm gonna, while I try to copy it to the parent folder, parent block. So you see that I do have like a 2-block folder that I try to fix. So that's okay though. We can just do this. Move. What was that? All right. So move this folder. Again, I've changed its name to this stupid comma dot stuff, while trying to copy it to the block. And now I'm sure that we do have that. Okay, now let's do it again, but to change its name. So this time it's gonna be this. All right, super. So now I can remove the folder block. So let's look at it again. Nice. All right, so we do have the blog repo here cloned. Of course, there's nothing here actually, and I should push something to this repo. But first, though, I'm gonna be using .NET command to create a couple projects, and the first one will be a UI project. So .NET new, and it's gonna be an Angular project. So when you choose Angular, it actually creates an ASP.NET Core project that has the Angular as its front end. So I want to keep that. I want to have that. And the name will be blog.webui, or yeah, I think it's fine. So yeah, I named it blog. I think it's fine. So blog.webui, it's the name of the project, and I'll try to follow the same pattern to for the other projects. So we're gonna have like blog. I don't know, MongoDB project, blog.data access layer, all that stuff, because I wanna distinguish the projects that I've added from the third-party projects with the name blog. All right. And eventually I'm gonna be combining all those projects into a solution file by using .NET SLN. Of course, you can also say .NET new. If you look at the help here, you can add a solution file here as well, which I'm gonna be doing actually. Let's do that. .NET new, .NET new SLN, and the name. Let's give it a name and say block solution. I think it's fine. All right. So we do have block solution.sln file and block.webui. So I want to combine. If you look at the block solution right now with the inside of that file, you're not gonna see the WebUI project added to this solution. So it doesn't recognize that project yet. So we have to specify which projects that we want to add in our to our solution file. So if you open that solution file with another like JetBrains or Visual Studio, it can actually show you which projects that come with this solution. All right. So the easy way of doing that is .NET SLN, and if you look at the SLN command, you'll see that it has add, list, and remove. So you can actually see all of the projects that are added to this project solution, and you can list them, or can you remove a project from a solution, and all sort of stuff. So for here, I will say add, and of course I can just say this, and I will actually find the projects in that directory, and will add them to my my solution. So if you have multiple projects, you don't have to specify each name of those projects, and you can just say *, and it will automatically find them and add them to your solution, which is nice. So if you look at your the block solution now, you'll see what I'm talking about. And now we have this project under, well, here. So that's pretty much it. And you can see that the name of it, GUI, or not GUI, sorry, GUID, and the name of the project and the path of it, and all the other information that the MSP will probably need. Okay, so let's commit all these things to our Git repo, and I will push them to the remote repo. So let's say, but of course we will need a git ignore file first, and the git ignore file will have a couple entries. For instance, I want to ignore all the bin folders. I want to ignore all the obj folders, object folders. I want to ignore the content of idea. If you use what's that called? Writer, it automatically creates a folder named idea to store its stuff. So that's pretty much nice. So I can just save and close. And now we can say of course, when you can't, this is my command, an alias. I've specified in the config file, and you can see pretty much all of my aliases under config global list. And I do have some aliases like cam, which is commit am, and alias cm commit am, and all that stuff. All right, so the zoom-in status su, and it shows the status files and like just the files, as well as the files that are in the directories. So instead of showing the directory, it actually shows the files within the directories. So I have. Let me actually see if I have stuff that I don't want to add. I guess it's pretty much good at this point. Yeah, I think it's pretty much nice. Git keep. All right. So currently I'm on master, so I'm committing everything to master. Initial project. So let's say push. Since I've cloned the project remote repo, I didn't have to specify a remote tracking branch using -u. So for instance, like if you say git push origin, git push u origin master, this way I can say, hey, I do have a branch that I want to create on. Create and track on the remote. So, but I didn't have to say that because I've cloned the project in the first place. So everything was automatically tracked for me and created for me on the Git side. This is good and all. So now I can, I believe, open up Writer and the IDE that I was talking about that is based on IntelliJ. Okay, let me see, where is it? So I'm gonna go ahead and open the project, and then we'll switch to Writer's window on the live stream. So file or full solution or project. Because I do have some projects that I want to show here in the same folder. Okay, this window. All right, so now it's just loading stuff, and it will initialize the project as well as its files that it needs. And now it's processing, some saving cache and stuff like that. And now, since it's using Angular, let me actually show you the project structure. It asks me to run the npm install to get all the packages that are in the packages.json file, which is a part of Node.js, right? Or not Node.js, but npm. So if you look at the client app, so basically ASP.NET Angular template puts your Angular project under client app. This is where you see your end-to-end testing, protractor, sources, source codes, and your main source files here, and the Angular JSON configuration. This is where we store the Angular config. We have TypeScript configuration over here, and TypeScript lint configuration over here, and we have package.json over here. So the good thing about this idea is that I believe it's a lot smarter than Visual Studio, because I remember like Visual Studio is prompting you to prompt to run this npm install automatically. You have to go like and run the npm install through command line, but the Writer has this option, and also it has an Angular plugin that I personally like better than Visual Studio Code's plugin for Angular. Okay, while it's running and getting all the npm packages, and by the way, I don't store those npm packages in my Git repo. I actually don't store anything that is generated through a command or tool, whatever, in Git, because I don't want to clutter my Git repo, and I just want to have a very small set of files that are really necessary to me, and people could just download it and then run the commands like npm install, whatnot, and then get all those things from the npm repos. And it probably that's what you do in your professional projects as well. So these are all Angular stuff, but if you look at the controllers and pages and root, these are the controllers that are exposed to public, right? So that you have route here, and you specify, like there are different ways you can specify a routing mechanism in ASP.NET Core, and one of them is attributes or through attributes. And the other one is you can use like traditional routing mechanism, and you can specify that in the startup by saying like route and map and all that stuff. I kind of like this better, and the reason is, I'm going to explain the reason when I integrate Swagger to this API so that I can test endpoints without actually having any Angular code on my end, or any Angular code that is actually hitting those endpoints. All right, so of course this is a simple project. It gives me a sample data controller, and basically shows me how I can use routes and how I create a data controller and all that stuff. And the good things about ASP.NET Core is that it's really easy to create your own API and kind of enforce how people will access them. For instance, if you say HTTP GET, that's the only way. The only way you can access to this rather forecasts and endpoint will be through HTTP GET. You can't do HTTP POST here. And there are other options here as well, like HTTP PUT, HTTP GET, HTTP POST, HTTP patch, and all that good stuff are right there in ASP.NET Core, and it's a lot easier that way. Of course, you can also do some configuration there, and I'll show you, like when you create your own API. I'll show you how you can properly create a RESTful service, and like the naming and like how that actually works, and how you should read a RESTful API, and how you should design a RESTful API. I'm gonna be showing all that stuff, all that good stuff to you as we develop our APIs. Okay, so let's actually go ahead and run this project. There's two ways you can run this. You can either click here and say run blog, or you can actually come over here and .NET Run. But of course, you have to be in the web project to be able to run your project. So right now, if I say .NET Run, it will not find a runnable project. It has to be a console application or a web application that actually has program or main method in it, right, as an entry point. So what I'm going to be doing is to go to blog.mportal, or sorry, well, that's another project I've been working on. So blog.webui, and say .NET Run. Of course, you have to usually say like you can pass V flag if you want to get a more verbose output here, like instead of it is actually, to me, it's enough amount of knowledge or information that is generated over here. But if you need more, then you can pass in -v flag to be able to do that. Okay, so there are a couple of things you need to know, which I'm gonna actually change for this project, and we'll add them back. Is that so if you look at that, I used .NET Run, by the way. I forget to switch to console, but I just said .NET Run in and it within blog.webui folder, and now it's running. And it also compiles your Angular project, starts a couple web servers. The first web server is for ASP.NET Core, and the other web server is for Angular. Of course, you don't have to use the Angular web server here. In fact, you shouldn't use the Angular web server unless you specify your Angular web server, which is a Webpack dev server actually, and you have to if you don't specify that as a proxy, you're going to be dealing with CORS problems or single origin policy problems. And the way you can overcome or bypass that problem is using CORS. At least one way is to use CORS. But the good thing is that I can use these two URLs to automatically bypass that problem, and I'm not going to have any of those single origin problems or origin policy problems here, because I'm going to be using those two. But I don't particularly like this HTTPS currently, because I don't have any HTTPS, and Google Chrome will be complaining about it. And let me show you what's going on there. Let's go back here, say HTTP localhost, and if I try to go to 5000, which is the HTTP one, and it automatically takes me to is there any way to zoom in? Okay, I don't know why it's so big like that, but it automatically takes me to HTTPS, and now Google Chrome tells me, hey, your connection is not private, and shows me this issue, or this warning, and I have to do like proceed to localhost, and it says unsafe. I don't want to deal with this all the time. I mean, I can just proceed to localhost, and now I can see the project and everything fine. And for some reason it feels like it's just Okay, now it's better. All right. So what I'm gonna do is to change this, right? So there is this launch setter or launcher that I'm gonna be changing. Let me see, where is it? I'm sure it's somewhere here. App settings. Nope. Let me find. Just a second. Okay, so let me find that. Okay, so here under properties, we do have this launch settings.json, and it actually tells you, like, it's a launch setting configuration place, right? And it has actually not in here. Well, there are a couple. Okay, so I'm gonna be changing two places. So the first one is, by the way, I use Kestrel server, not using any IS Express or whatever and then this one, I'm using this configuration because I'm using Kestrel, not using IS Express. So you see that application URL and automatically launches those two URLs for you, or creates those two stuff. So what I'm gonna be doing is that I'm gonna be deleting this one first. I don't need this, at least for now. Maybe in the future, once I have a valid SSL certificate, I can reactivate those things. But right now, it's not gonna happen. And the other one is under startup. You're gonna be seeing this use HTTPS redirection. I don't want this redirection to happen. So what happens here is that, if you guys know what the configure is, it is a middleware for ASP.NET Core. That means, if you remember, like from the early days of ASP.NET, we used to have this HTTP modules, and to basically intercept HTTP requests and HTTP responses, and do some custom logic, or apply some custom logic on them, and then pass the response or the request to the next HTTP module, right? And when that request passed all of the HTTP modules that we defined, and then it hits an HTTP handler, and then the rest is, So here it is a very similar approach here. So the configure is the middleware, and we call it middleware actually. And then what happens here is that you actually specified each step that you want to apply to each request and response. So for instance, you check if the request is in development environment, then you say use developer exception page, right? If something goes bad, you probably want to give more information to the user and use developer exception page. So when the request comes in, the order is important over here. So the request will pass through all these steps here. It will look at use HTTPS redirection. It will look at the static files and stuff like that. And if something returns a response, instead of passing that request to the next step, which is, for instance, here is I use SPA static files, which is SPA means single page application static files, and all that stuff, right? I mean, and then when the response is sent back, it will basically travel the same steps backwards. So So here, request comes here and passes all this to all the steps to the bottom, and once the response is generated, now it goes back up and passes all the steps again for the response. So this is pretty much similar to HTTPS, or sorry, HTTP modules. And here, I don't want this step to apply. So what happens here is that if the request is coming from an HTTP instead of HTTPS, it automatically redirects that HTTP to HTTPS and returns a response. So the rest of steps here are not hit, because use HTTPS redirection actually returns a response. So let me show you how that looks like, the content of that method. Oops, I forgot to go back to, darn. All right. By the way, this is the steps I was explaining to you guys. Is that all that stuff like configure, all that steps I was explaining to you. Like if you remember what I've said, I was talking about these steps over here, and I'm trying to show you the inside of use HTTPS redirection, which I'm gonna delete from this configure because I don't want that happen. I don't want to be redirected to HTTPS when I visit the page through HTTP protocol. So here, if you look at the HTTPS rejection here, we have, of course, we have more middleware here, and it just basically does more stuff. Let me see what's going on here. iServer address feature, and it passes that to this use middleware, and now we're using different middleware, HTTPS redirection middleware, and let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Okay. So we look at the HTTPS port and all that stuff. Has value if it's an HTTPS port. And let's see, task. We have task here. So we get the request, right? And we get the status code. We had to get the headers. Well, there's so many things here. It's pretty much obvious. I mean, if you read this code from top to bottom, I'm sure that you'll understand what's exactly going on here. But the idea here is that if you look at that, this actually gets all the information, collects all the information possible from request, and determine if it's an HTTPS or HTTP, and then form the URL based on the request header location and all that stuff, right? Because you pass in the location, and then form a new URL and pass that URL back to the browser as a referrer, not a referrer, as a location, right? Let me actually go and tell you. Why is it so big like that? Okay, so let me show you something real quick. So first, I'm gonna go to network, and I will preserve log. So when redirection happens, I don't want to lose the log here. So let's go back and say HTTP localhost and 5000. Okay, so the first one was that, right? And we get a temporary direct response back as the status code. But if you look at the request, we send, we try to go to this location with the get, by making a get request. But what we get back is that we get a location response header that basically tells the browser where it needs to go for the redirection that we requested from the browser. So it is now going to localhost 5000. All right, that's good on all. And after rejection happens, now we get a proper response back, and that's the that's the Angular or index HTML stuff. But here, if you look at the response, you're not going to see anything at all, because it actually didn't send a response body. It just sent us response headers, and that's it. But here, we do have some response body here. If you look at the response, that's what I'm talking about. And that's a preview, which doesn't show us much. Okay, so now I go back, and I will delete this line, or I can just comment it out like so. And I've deleted this 2 lines. Okay, now let's go back to our console, and now let's stop this console so that we can oops. Okay, so I'm gonna say .NET run, okay, and I'm gonna be closing that from the browser, and now let's run this, and you're gonna see it only give you one URL, and that is this over here, and that's what exactly I want. So let's go back to browser and say localhost 5000. I'm not gonna see that error anymore, at least for now. Okay, so let's go back to console, and I'm gonna commit those changes. So I'll go ahead and say new bash, git bash, okay. and desktop projects, and that was, I believe, blog. Okay, so let's say git su. So I do have a couple of changes here. The package lock JSON file, basically, as you see, it's what is that called? Changed, because now I download a bunch of packages, and the log file has specific dependency tree and dependency versions for a better repeatability of my builds. If you don't exactly know what package log file and the difference between the package.json and package.log, or not log, but package-log.json file, you can easily Google it, and you will have you will find tons of documentation that explains the difference between those two. All right, so by the way, I don't want to have this user setting file that is for the ID and stuff. I don't want to keep that in Git, because people have their own stuff, all their own user preferences for their IDs and stuff like that. So it is specific to my environment, so I'm not going to keep it in Git. So let's actually go to git ignore, and let's ignore that guy over there. I guess I can just say any file. Oops. And a file that ends with user. So I guess it's fine. All right, let's save this. And let's say su. Perfect. So let's add those two. Perhaps normally, like I kind of like keeping those changes as a separate commits, which I can show you how. I mean, the reason is that because they're not related changes, right? Package lock JSON is changed because of the npm install, but launch settings and startup CS, they are changed because I've changed things, and they are related changes, right? So I want to keep them in a separate commits, and so that when I go through the history, I need to change stuff, or need to find out what happened, to my project. If I try to figure out a bug or something, I can easily go to a specific commit, and that has related changes in it, and make sure that what I try to do, what caused the problem or not caused the problem, and stuff like that. And that's better. I mean, anyways, so let's do it. So one easy way to do that is, if you don't want to specify the entire path, you can just say launch settings.json. And now if you look at that, you see that it is added to my cache, or index, or staging area, whatever you call it. And then add, and now I want to add this startup CS, of course. Well, I want to commit the package lock first, because I want, or git ignore first. Let's do that. So we'll have to do mixed hat. Okay. Did I lose something? No, good. Git add package lock JSON. Good. Execute it, npm install. So git add git ignore ignoring user solution files. All right, now I can say removed if I can type. Okay. So if you refresh this remote repo GitHub page, now you can see all the commits I've done so far. Perfect. Okay, so we have that stuff. So I'm gonna be making this video small, by the way. I don't want to spend so much time on each video, not an hour or so. So we'll probably be looking at, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 10 videos, and those are the videos I'm gonna be paying attention, concentrating my efforts on for some time. And I want to finish this series and want to publish it. I want to use it this blog as my primary blog. So we can approach this in 2 ways. We can actually design the UI first, right? And then mock our endpoints with services, or fake services, I will say. And when I feel like the UI looks fine, and when I feel like I want to proceed to get actual data from the server, at that point I can start developing the backend and APIs and stuff like that. But yeah, so the first thing I want to do before I finish this video is to integrate Swagger to this project. Okay, so let's go to Swagger, and actually ASP.NET uses a library called Swashbuckle, I think, Swashbuckle or whatever. We'll figure that out. ASP.NET Core, and it makes Swagger was a Swashbuckle, yeah, this guy, and it makes Swagger integration to ASP.NET Core project a breeze. So of course I'm going to be using the old version, the stable version. I used to use this at first. I used this this beta version for one of my projects, and it was not working properly. So do not use it. Use this version, whatever the stable version is. Okay, so, and it explains how you can configure the Swagger and all that stuff, which we'll be doing right now. But first, we have to get the NuGet package, right? So what I'm gonna do is to go to project here and say manage NuGet packages. You probably don't see it though. Oh yeah, you see it, actually, you see it. Okay. So here I'm gonna be saying, let's say Swagger. I believe it automatically appears. All right, so this is what I want to get. Swagger, of course, not 5 beta, but actually this version, which is the stable version, right? So I can, if I have like multiple projects here on this solution, it actually will list all those projects, so I can specify which project that I want to add this dependency, right? But here I only have this project, and I only want to add this project to Web UI because it is where it makes sense to have. So let's add that package. And this NuGet manager here, or plugin here on JetBrains Writer, is a lot stable than what Visual Studio has. I've had so many problems with Visual Studio's NuGet manager, and here on Writer it just works just fine. So okay, so we have those things. So I'm gonna be going back and forth between Google Chrome and JetBrains. So the first thing I want to do is to, here in the configure services method, we need to add this service so that it is injected into appropriate places, right? So I'm just going to copy this to, actually, yeah, just this one, very simple. I'll go back to Writer here in startup file, in configure services, after at MVC, we say this. And of course, it asks us to get the references. We already have the references, right? Oh, maybe not. Let's see what's missing. Do I need to? That's actually what I had that. All right, so I cannot resolve that. I don't know the reason why. Should. Maybe we don't have the package that we wanted. Oh, I think the reason is because we are looking at the documentation for a different version. So let's go back to this version's documentation. Now things may change. Well, they didn't change. Let's see. .NET add package swashbuckle ASP.NET Core. Okay, let me go back here. Something is fishy. So I see the Swagger here. Let's actually clean this project and maybe, you know, maybe they'll help us. It is under build, clean solution. Oh, I probably need to stop the server, huh? Yeah, let's stop it. Man, I have so many. Oh, actually not. I gotta stop over here. Okay, now let's clean the project. Tools. You probably don't see those because I use window capture, so it doesn't capture tool window. What was that called? Tooltips, not tooltips. Context menu and stuff. Okay, that's really weird. I wasn't expecting this to happen. Let me go to NuGet package again. Okay, so I have that one. Perhaps I need to have this as well. I thought it was automatically does that, but didn't add it. Okay. Okay, let's do that. Probably somehow I feel like I also will need to add this as well. Cool. Okay, all right. I think I was missing that one and now it's there. And the problem with the documentation is it does not specify that, but that's weird. Anyways, that's okay. So we have that one, and that's pretty much it actually. And the configure method, insert middleware to expose the generated Swagger as JSON. So I'm gonna copy that. And optionally insert this Swagger. I'll probably have this one as well. So under configure, we're gonna, I think somewhere here. Okay, somewhere here I'm gonna say this. And then the other one is to copy this. Okay. And that's it actually. Of course, when you can specify this, let's give it a better name. I'm gonna say blog API. We're using version 1, so this has to match this, just so you guys know that it's important. Okay, so it's there. Let's run this over here. I'm not gonna use command line to run this. I mean, this is easier. So it's running and stuff. So let's go and I'm typing Swagger here. Boom. Now we have our Swagger endpoint. And the good thing about Swagger is that you can actually try out your stuff. So if I execute this, I can actually get some response. And that's the beauty of Swagger. And it tells me, you know, let me refresh this page. It tells me what models or what type of response this API or endpoint returns. And this is the example value, and that's the model. It also lists all the models available right here, and it gives you an example value. And if you do a post or get or whatever, you can actually test all of your API right over here without using any like Postman or stuff like that. It's very easy to use it. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. So what I'm gonna commit those changes, and we're gonna end the stream. So let's do this and add all. Oops. Say incorporated. I don't know, is that the word? Swagger. I think that's it. Okay. Thank you guys for joining me today, and hope to see you in my next stream for developing a blog application with Angular 7, .NET Core, and MongoDB. See you soon.